Welcome back to the Am I Rich Yet podcast, a weekly podcast for millennials and Gen Zs where we help you save, spend, and grow your money smarter. Today is episode 4, where we will be talking about all things debt and credit cards. My name is Georgia. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm a Gen Z current MBA student studying in Sydney, Australia, and navigating my own personal finances.
And I'm Georgia's dad, a recently retired financial advisor, here to help you make smarter decisions with your money.
Welcome to Am I Rich Yet? So let's jump in. Dad, how are things going today?
Morning's been great. I did my morning walk this morning, about 45 minutes, set a new time record. So really happy.
Okay, good. And how are our stress levels? We had a bit of audio issues this morning.
We have had some technical issues. Delayed our start, but I think we're good.
The show keeps going.
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Well, I had a tough morning because I lost one of my favorite rings through a crack in the dock.
Uh-oh.
I know.
You may have to go swimming.
I don't think I'm ready to swim yet.
Okay.
But anyways, I'm feeling energized and ready to go this morning, so we can jump right into it.
So what are we covering today?
We had a lot of questions come in around debt and credit cards, and that's what we're going to be focused on.
So George, let's start with, what's your experience with debt, credit cards? What's that been like? You're 26 years old now. You've had a credit card for a while. You've had some debt. What's it like? You've got some debt right now.
Yeah, so high level, I've only had one credit card my whole life. We bank with Scotiabank. I've only had one, so I've never had that issue of having too many credit cards. I have friends that will say to me, like, jump on this credit card. You get a ton of free points and air miles and things like that, but I'm good with my one. And then debt. Yeah, over the last 12 months, I've been taking on debt for the first time in my life. And we talked about this on episode 1. I'm taking on student debt right now, completing my master's. So that's where I stand.
Okay. So for me, debt and credit cards I've had a lot of interesting experiences. My experience started back initially in 1984 when I graduated from university. I'd never had a credit card before that. And at the time, American Express was the only company that offered me a credit card. So now, this podcast is not sponsored by American Express, but they were the ones who said, yeah, you're approved. There's no credit limit at this time. And I've been a loyal customer ever since. I guess the next experience was back when your mom and I had our mortgage on our first property. I was in the middle of changing careers, so I was doing some bartending where a lot of the money is tipped, so you can't really explain how the money's coming in. I was just starting to work as a financial advisor. It was just before Christmas, and our bank manager called us and said, if you don't update or pay off this loan, we're going to call the loan by the end of January. And literally that we had gone through a friend with Scotiabank at the time, and it was ridiculous. So I learned very early on, and banks are only your friends when they need you, not you needing them. And so luckily business started to grow and we got through that without too much trouble. So I thought it might be helpful to review just the types of debt and what they are. Let's start first with mortgages. Mortgages, so you've got a mortgage on your property, maybe it's your house or maybe it's your condo. Typically, they're lower interest rates and they're what the banks call secured because they have your house as collateral. Next up would probably be a car loan. Okay, a car loan, they have the car. So the loan is secured against the car. So their interest rates are a little higher because a car and a house or a condo aren't quite the same, but they're still low relative to other things. Next up, you'd have lines of credit. They may be secured against an asset, which means it's tied to something, or it's unsecured. Ideally, you want unsecured, but you're going to pay more interest. And so why do all these things change? I think the key is you got to think like a bank. If we have collateral and security, we can give a better rate. If we don't have collateral or security, we're going to charge more. So that's where we get into credit cards.
Now, before we move on, you said getting a line of credit with a secured asset. What would an example of that be?
You might have a line of credit on your house. on an investment
So
property.
it's kind of
it
like
might not be a mortgage. It may just be a line of credit.
So the bank saying, here's your money, but if you don't pay us back, we can take your house.
Correct.
Okay.
And an unsecured is they might give you just a $10,000 line of credit that's unsecured, but you're going to pay maybe 1 or 2% more interest on that if you borrow money from it.
Got it.
Okay. So then we get to credit cards. Let's call the credit cards the evil of the debt world. And why that is, they're great if you make your payments on time. They're not so great if you're late. And if you're late, they're going to charge you 20% plus in interest. So that's huge.
Is that 20% standard across all credit?
No, they're all a little bit different. They'll be 21, 23, 25.
Okay.
And you can't just think of it as your 20. You got to do some math in here. Because you're spending it with after-tax dollars, it's actually costing you sometimes closer to 30, 35% in interest because you've got those late payment charges.
Yeah.
And if you're holding a balance on that credit card, let's say you owed $15,000, you only paid 10, and you still got 5 outstanding, you're going to be paying, your real cost to be like 35% on just that 5,000, which is huge.
Yeah. So simplifying that a little bit, that 20% can actually be more like 30 and 35 because it's not being taken off your gross income. It's being taken off your net income, which is the number that you're left with after you pay your taxes.
Exactly.
So it's actually hitting you harder.
It's hitting you much harder. And none of it's tax deductible.
Yeah.
Because it's a credit card.
A question we had come across was, is all debt bad debt, or are there good types of debt too?
If you get a balance on your credit card that you're not paying every month, that's really bad debt. That's expensive debt to be carrying. 20% plus, when you factor in you're paying it with after-tax dollars,
Yeah.
it's costing you 35%.
Got it.
It's like loan shark money.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up is if you've got a balance on your line of credit that is not tax deductible. So if you're paying 8% on an unsecured line of credit and you're carrying $8,000 on that line of credit, that's bad debt.
Yeah.
Okay. Because you've overspent and you've got money on that line of credit. Next up, if you've got student loan, if you're not making the payments that you're supposed to be making, they're going to charge you high interest. So again, I would consider that bad debt. Sometimes people borrow money to make investments like their RSP account. They'll borrow money at the beginning of the year to make an RSP contribution. If they're not paying that off on time, that's bad debt. Again, it's not tax deductible. So you're paying the real cost. And if you factor in the after-tax costs, the rates just keep going up. If you're playing what's called credit card roulette, which is you're borrowing from one credit card to pay another credit card, you're headed down a bad road. Okay, you need to stop that immediately. So that's an example of a really bad debt. I think owing money to family isn't great debt. It causes issues. I haven't really ever borrowed money, other than we'll talk about that when we get to mortgages, but there's anxiety. At some point, the person you borrowed the money from, whether it's your parents, a brother or sister, are expecting to get repaid.
Yeah.
Sometimes because they're a brother or sister, you don't repay it on time.
Yeah.
So it causes more than just the debt. It's the anxiety around the debt. And anything I'm going to call horrible debt, if you've borrowed from friends, that's just brutal debt.
Worse than family debt?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because your friends are definitely expecting to get repaid.
Yeah.
And
Friends can leave you, but your family can't.
exactly.
Okay. So we've just covered types of bad debt. Now, what about, on the other hand, good debt? What would be some examples of good debt?
I think borrowing money to buy a car, if car loan or a car lease, that's fine. You need a car. It's expensive to buy a car. Ideally, you pay for it in cash, but who has cash to pay for a car? So car debt isn't bad because at least it's secured against the car, so the rates might be a little lower. And often some of the companies give you great deals. It might be 0% financing, so it actually costs you no money to borrow that money. You're just paying back what you borrowed.
Okay.
If you've got an outstanding balance on your mortgage, that's pretty normal. You bought a big asset, a house, a condo, and you've got an outstanding balance. That type of debt's pretty good debt. If you borrow money to invest, let's say you borrow $50,000 and put it into a mutual fund. that's good debt because the cost of borrowing is a tax deductible expense. So that's huge. So if you're paying 8% interest and you're in the 50% tax bracket, it's only costing you 4%. Okay? 8 times 50% is 4%. So that's pretty good. And so if you're earning a higher return than 4%, you're making money on the money you've borrowed. And that's the objective. It's not for everyone. Finally, I think if you've got an investment property and you've got some debt on that, that's pretty good debt. Okay? It's the same strategy as borrowing to invest. The payments are tax deductible. So there are some good types of debt out there.
Okay. Now, let's take it back to credit card debt specifically, because I think that's probably going to be the type of debt that a lot of people in my generation can relate to right now. Why is credit card debt so bad? And I know we talked about it a little bit, but anything else to add?
We've talked about the high rates. I think it's the constant stress. You get that credit card statement and you're not paying it off and you know it. So you may not think about it, but I guarantee it's weighing on your mind unless you're completely guilt-free in that. And that's probably not a good, maybe you say, I'm borrowing the money from some faceless institution. I'm okay with that. That's probably not a good strategy. If you're just making the minimum payment, so that's a little trick that they do. As long as you pay us $1,500, we won't worry about the other $9,000 that you owe. And that's a killer because they're making that 20% on the other $8,500. So the banks are in the business of making money for their shareholders. That's their primary business, to make money. And they're really good at it. That's why they all make billions of dollars every quarter.
Okay, maybe you can explain why, because I thought paying minimum payments was adequate.
No, it means that remaining balance you're paying interest on at that 20% plus.
But what if that's all you can afford?
Then you've taken on too much debt.
Okay.
So you're in a really bad position.
So then
if you're
you need to be clearing it down to zero at the end of every month?
And then it's perfect. You get to borrow that money free for 30 days before you have to make any payments on it. Plus, you sometimes get rewards and travel points and whatever. That's when you're taking advantage of the credit card as opposed to the credit card taking advantage of you. Paying the minimum payment is definitely the credit card taking advantage of you.
Okay. Anything else to add on why credit card debt is so bad?
If let's say you paid $500 in interest payments, that money could be going into savings. So you're missing out on that. If you're just making the minimum payment to your credit score, it's not very good. And if you happen to miss that minimum payment by a day or two, then you're really in trouble. That's when the credit card company starts calling you. We need to come up with a plan.
Okay, so we have just covered why credit card debt is so bad. And now we're going to move on to 3 of our questions from our viewers. The first one being, how do I deal with debt and what accounts are what?
Okay, I think the starting point of dealing with debt is figuring out, first of all, how much you owe, who do you owe it to, and what interest rate are you paying. If you want to do a deeper dive, you can put in what's my minimum payment on all that. But how much do I owe, who do I owe it to, and what interest rate is it? That's a great starting point. Next up is, where do you start? Always start with the highest interest one first. So if one of them is at 12%, one of them is at 9%, and one of them is at 7%, where do you start, George?
You start with 12. I think that's good because I think people might think, oh, I actually heard one time another opinion, which was if you have, let's say, a credit card with $5K, $10K, and $20K, start with the $5K so you feel like you're making a little bit of groundwork, which I think like psychologically might work for some people, but I like your opinion because it's more logical. You end up paying less if you're tackling the one with the highest interest rate first.
Remember, you're paying it with after-tax dollars. Yeah, you started with the smaller one, you feel a little bit better. No, start with the one with the higher. It's the one that's killing you.
Maybe instead you tell a trusted friend that you are on day one of tackling your credit card debt on your highest interest rate card, and then you can celebrate with them instead of having the psychological achievement feeling.
Okay, next up, pay more than the minimum. If the minimum's $1,200, pay $1,400 that month.
Okay.
Like, it's progress, right? You're paying more than the minimum. If you can afford $2,000, pay $2,000, even though you owe $10,000. do your best. Don't just pay the minimum. That's where it just becomes perpetual.
Okay.
What's the next question?
So next question came from a listener who said, I'm trying to save and get into investing while still paying off student loans with interest. I was originally trying to do both because that's what someone at the bank told me to do until I looked deeper into how much interest I was paying. Now I'm putting a maximum amount monthly into my student loans and have little to no savings. I have a TFSA account as a rainy day account to fall back on, but it's scary to have such little saved. I feel behind.
I'm a big believer in helping your own confidence. So if you just do nothing but pay down debt and you got a lot of debt, you feel like you're doing that for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I think whether you allocate 50% to debt and 50% to savings, or 75 to debt and 25 to savings, some percentage like that's far better than 100% to debt. Now, I'm going to find some other advisors that say, oh no, that's not the right financial move. It may not be the right financial move, but it's the right move for people to get some confidence, got some savings behind them. They don't feel like they're just in perpetual debt.
Yep.
So I think that's the key.
Yep.
I think the bank actually gave good advice that they should be doing a bit of both, some savings and paying down that debt.
Okay. And the interest is just, I guess it's like a trade-off. Yeah, you're going to have to pay some interest, but you can also be living a life that you're happy with and not making all the sacrifices in the world to just be paying off your debt.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's kind of like a diet. They say you should be able to cheat once a week or have a day where you don't follow the diet.
80-20 rule.
A little something like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. I think it's good for feeling positive about your personal finances, knowing you're paying off your debt, but still spending on some things that make you happy. So last question, is it better to consolidate all your debt and make a repayment plan with your bank?
That, to me, that only works if you just stop taking on new debt. You take those credit cards and you take a pair of scissors and you cut it into 4 and you throw it in the trash. If you're having to consolidate, you're getting to that stage, you need to make some really tough rules. I would cut that credit card up and you just got to start paying cash. And if you don't have cash, you don't buy. It's really simple. Or you start using your debit card. Forget the credit card. I'm just using my debit card.
So this person's saying that they have debt coming in from whether it's multiple credit cards or different types of debt, and they're wondering if they should package it all together and start to pay it off as one lump sum. Why would they even consider doing that?
Just simplification.
Simplification.
You get a better interest rate if the bank takes all that debt on. Banks love debt because they're making money on it. They love debt more than anything.
And you say not to do that because?
No, don't do that unless you're willing to not take on any more debt and to cut those credit cards up.
Okay.
You can open those credit cards up down the road, but for now, just the credit card still exists. You're just not using it because you've cut it up.
Got it.
And delete it from your app. So yeah, it's all saved in your phone and Google has all your credit card information. Just because you cut it up, that doesn't help.
Because if you consolidated it and then you continued swiping that card, what would happen? You're just saying...
You're just taking on more debt.
Yeah, you're just in this hole.
I've got some friends that pay cash only for everything, and that helps them control things. Use your debit card only. If the money is in the account, you can't buy what you wanted to buy.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Okay, I think that covers everything that we had to cover on today's episode of Debt and Credit Cards.
If you've got debt, make a plan to pay it down. Okay? You want to get rid of it.
Okay.
Okay? I think that's key. What are we doing next week?
So next week, it's all about savings.
So we've had a lot of questions about savings. We're actually going to have to cover this in 4 different podcasts. We're going to talk about savings basics, what are the accounts to use, and then we've got a slew of questions that we're going to go through about and around savings.
Awesome. Thanks for tuning in and listening to episode 4. We hope you took some things away, and we will see you next week.